my name is Sarah and welcome back to Everyday Consent. Today I have another consent chat with my good friend Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin Wilson-Beatty and I'm the founder of Sex Abled and I'm a disability and sexuality educator.
Can you tell me a little about how you got into this field? What led you to that?
What got me into this was I've always been doing some kind of form of sex education, but when I got a spinal cord injury in 2004, I realized that, when I started exploring sexuality with my new body and the new normal that I was experiencing, I wasn't finding a lot of information about, about adaptive sex. And as a matter of fact, in my rehab, we covered everything that had to do with your body and how to take care of yourself and like how to go to the bathroom, how to regulate your temperature, all these different things. Sexuality, they separated the men and the women into two different rooms like we were in 5th grade learning about our periods. And they showed us a 45-minute film that was one of the most depressing things that I had ever seen in my life, but it did not give me hope, and it just raised more questions than what it answered. And I knew that wasn't, that there had to be more, and I was right. I realized that sexuality, which is an extremely important part of what it means to be a human being, that was being left out of the conversation. Yeah. And that was alarming to me. So I started grassroots, just talking anywhere and everywhere that would have me talking about disability and sexuality, and it just grew from there. My first ASEX, I did a workshop on BDSM and disability. Oh, yeah. Yes, and called it How to Work with the Kinks Within Your Kink.
Oh,
so it went over really well, and that was the first time I actually had ever presented at a professional conference. And, but it went really well, and but it also showed me, it gave me the confidence to know, yes, I have something unique to share with the world about sexuality, something to teach.
When you did start talking about sex and disability and starting to do some activism with that, what sort of reception did you receive when you brought that up?
You have to also realize that, I was living in the South. Yeah. I was living in the South, and being in the South and, being a person of color, talking about sexuality, especially to communities where they weren't used to hearing that, they had the right to express their sexuality because of the ableist notions that they were getting. I remember when I was working, being a youth advocacy coordinator. I was talking to my boss and she was just like, oh no, we can't talk about sex. I was like, I did not understand the pushback. There is a lot of people without disabilities who are running things. Oh. And so they are they're very uncomfortable. Oh, okay. But things are changing. Thank God for the internet and Tumblr and Twitter and social media.
Has a big community come through that?
Yes, it has. And so we're able to connect and we're able to share ideas because, there are, at times it's hard for people with disabilities, like I was talking about, like transportation and accessibility and stuff.
Even going to a meeting.
Yeah, that's all related, and that's all related to sexuality as well. Like, how are you... if you're wanting to go out on a date, think of, okay, well, we have to find somewhere that's accessible. Oh, yeah. We've got to get the transportation that's accessible to get us there, and to come back, and, and finding privacy, especially, like, if you're living, like, if you're living in, like, a group home, or you are living at home with, your parents, having people with disabilities, being able to talk to their caretakers, like, okay, I need you to help me arrange in bed and get these things ready for me because I'd like to have sex. I used to be, in college, I was a personal attendant. for a woman with muscular dystrophy. You know, I remember when she was like, okay, my boyfriend is coming over and can you know, get me ready in bed and stuff. And I was just like, woo, that's awesome. But, you know, but there have been, I've talked to other friends where the conversations that they've, you know, they can go, you know, two ways. The personal attendant, you know, can be supportive and like, okay, all right, and realize that this is part of, you know, their job. You know, it might be different, but this is part of their job because it's all about doing that care. And then occasionally you'll run into an attendant like, oh no, that you shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Disabled people don't have sex.
I was like, no, which is ridiculous. Yeah, I find that, you know, like especially from a medical standpoint, people are much more comfortable talking about addressing the needs of, you know, toileting and, you know, bathing and, you know, helping somebody out like with their menstrual cycle, you know, and things like that. But sexuality, just think about how our culture addresses it talks about sexuality anyway in America.
So when it comes to a disabled person and their relationship to consent in sexual relationships, it sounds like there are a bunch of different layers.
Sometimes, you know, people with disabilities will be like, oh, well, I should be lucky that anybody wants me because I'm not able-bodied. I mean, some of this is disability. Like I said, it's just culture. It's become a really big issue about talking about what consent is. You know, that's the conversation that we're having now in America with everybody. Yeah. So when you have someone who has been taught that, you know, from society's messages that they are not sexually desirable or that or that you don't have a right to have a sex life or in a family, you know, or have children or reproduce or anything like that, then, you know, when you do start trying to explore your sexuality, you know, I've talked to people where they, like I said, they're like, oh, well, you know, this person wants me. So whether it's what they want to do or what they're into, they're just like, okay, no,
I have to go along.
Go along with it. And I like to teach people that no, that's bullshit.
Thank you so much for joining me today. We will have more with Robin next week, but in the meantime, you can reach her
at www.sexabledwithrobinwb.com, or you can find me on Twitter on @sexabled.
And those links will also be in the description. So we will see you next week. Happy consenting, folks. We'll see you next week.
I felt really empowered.
Yeah.
I felt, and that was also the first time I was able to do, like I said, since acquiring my disability, that was the first time that I felt like, here, I can organize this sexual event.
I can ask for something.
I can ask for something and get it.